In this video, I'm breaking down the edit of an entire wedding film I did back in 2021. From start to finish, I go through transcoding footage into ProRes, I go through coloring your footage, audio, export, all that good stuff. This was actually a module, the editing module in my filmmaking course in the classroom. I've since updated this editing module because a lot of classroom students asked me to go through the entirety of a wedding film from start to finish. So the new editing module has an extra hour added on with the entire workflow, but I still wanted to give this old version of it for free on YouTube, and so you could see the quality of the classroom and what you'd be getting. Making videos like this entire week in July of 2023 because we are launching the classroom again this week with massive discounts. So if you wanted to get in on the filmmaking course before July 17th at midnight Central Standard Time, you could use code SAVE400 to get $400 off the filmmaking course. If you wanted to bundle that with the photo course as well to get the bundle of both photo and video, you can use the code SAVE600 to get $600 off the bundle. Just needed to get that out of the way before you watch the entire editing module. I hope it's helpful to you, and leave any comments down below with questions you might have. I'll try to get to as many as I can. And if you really like this module, there's also an entire free module within the course experience, module 7, client experience, how to talk to clients, communicate with them, emails, all that good stuff. So that's also linked in the description if you want to check that out. But if you have any questions about the classroom and enrolling in it, feel free to shoot me an Instagram DM at eric.floberg or an email at ericfloberg@gmail.com. Enjoy this module.
Editing. All right, here we go. Make yourself another cup of coffee because this is a lot. There's a lot of information. I'm going to take you through the entire framework. Now, tonight in this set, I'm only going to go through like the beginning stages. So building it, first backing up all your footage, then transcoding the footage if you want to do that. That's what I do with my C200 footage and what I recommend for a lot of like other codecs with log. If you might have a computer that really struggles to edit video, highly recommend this workflow. Even proxies, which I didn't even think about. I will want to mention that. Just if you're interested in proxies or have heard of that, look up Matt Johnson's YouTube channel and type up proxies. Look how to do that. That's another workflow that's similar. I really like the ProRes route. I just want to dive in. I want to make sure and reinforce this point that this is for creativity and inspiration and honestly using visual and audio together, mostly audio in this process. Visuals are great. I feel like technically it's a lot easier to nail visuals. It's much harder to incorporate audio because that's the creative part, and that's what honestly quite literally speaks to people. People hearing other people's voices and people hearing music and the crescendos in music. If you don't know, I do have a background in music, so that's really helpful for me. If you have some sort of background in music, that can be incredibly helpful for you too. First we're just gonna jump right into prep. We're gonna back up all of the footage in 3 places, right? 3 places, spinning disk drive and solid state. Solid states, I use solid state drive Samsung T5 portable SSD. This is 2 terabytes, and the transfer that you have at the end of a wedding day is amazing on this. It's just super, super fast. I can do like 500 gigs of raw footage from the C200 from a CFast card to this in like 10, 15 minutes, which is wild. It's so nice. And then from here, I'm transferring all of the data from the wedding, all the footage, all the audio to a spinning disk drive like this one over here. Oh, I can't reach that. Should I eject it?
No, I'll give you one more.
Oh, cool. Mike's gonna come over with one of his. So yeah, solid state doesn't have a spinning disk inside of it, but these Lacy drives that I'm about to show you do have spinning disks and moving parts, but they're usually bigger and they're cheaper. So they have this rubber coating on the outside, and then I get the 5 terabyte ones. So if I'm shooting raw at a wedding, which is usually a terabyte, that can hold like 5 weddings on these. So I buy like 8 to 10 of these a year, which can get pricey, but that's the cost of doing business, and that's your overhead. So we have the 3 locations. We have solid state. We have the 3 other spinning disk drives, and you can do 3 spinning disk drives and clear this, or this could be the one that you work off of as well, which I'll talk about in a bit. If you really want to, you could do something like Backblaze, where you back up all your footage, because I think Backblaze plans give you unlimited storage for pretty affordable. It just takes a really long time and can slow down your computer. So I prefer just doing 3 locations, 2 of them being at the studio, and then 1 being at home. Just keep it in my side drawer next to my bed. And then I have all the data in 2 separate locations. So if there's a fire or a burglary in each one of the locations, then there's a safe version of the project in the other location. So we have that, and then from there, I'm going to go ahead and import all of my footage into DaVinci Resolve to transcode it. You might be wondering what the heck is transcoding. So basically, it's taking a really bloated codec, basically your video file that is really uncompressed, has tons of data, tons of information, and it's squeezing it down to a smaller file size. You might be like, aren't you losing a bunch of data? Aren't you losing a bunch of quality? You might be losing some quality, but it's really indecipherable quality, in my opinion, especially the way I do it. It really minimizes the space. I shoot a terabyte of footage in RAW, but then I compress it to about 250 to 300 gigs of footage, about a third of what I actually shot in ProRes. So we'll go ahead and just do a new project. We'll say course example ProRes. You can also do this in the Adobe suite in Media Encoder, and Matt Johnson also has a video on that if you'd prefer to do it that way. DaVinci is free and you can transcode for free. And if you want to get the fancy version, it's just a one-time payment of $300 for DaVinci Studio. Lots of people edit in DaVinci. I'm considering switching over because of how many people love using it. And every time someone switches over and gets their hands on it for a week full on, they're like, all right, I'm never going back. So that might be me too, but we'll see. For now, I'm perfectly fine with Adobe and Premiere with this workflow. So as you saw, I did file import, very simple stuff here. We're going to go to this drive. Ironically, this is already transcoded footage. If I shoot in RAW, you actually can't even see it in Apple's Finder. You have to literally import it into editing software, DaVinci or Premiere or Final Cut to view it. Canon has its own software, but it's garbage. So for the sake of just showing you an example, we're just going to pretend this is all RAW footage, and I'm going to grab like a dozen of it, a dozen clips, and we'll import it. I don't want to change the frame rates on those. And you'll see, boom, it imported super, super fast, as DaVinci does. I highlight all of them, and I'm going to go to File, Media Management. And now here, we're going to hit transcode instead of copy. So we're changing the codec to a different codec. And we're going to go to the Browse tab, and you're going to pick a folder that you already made. Here I have, I don't have that in there anymore. Let me just go to Finder, and I'll make a new folder that will transcode to. Transcode example. So we'll retranscode the transcoded footage, but we'll pretend it's RAW. Okay. Wedding film, Max and Michelle. Transcode example. So that's our destination. Boom. Okay. Transcode all media. We have 11 clips. We'll keep it as video format as QuickTime. We don't want H.264 or H.265. That's beefy and hard to edit in Premiere. We're going to switch to Apple ProRes. Now, there's a bunch of different options for types of Apple ProRes. I like 422 HQ. Minimal quality loss, very middle of the road. It's not as big as 444 or 444XQ, 4444XQ. 422, you can see the current size is about 6.5 gigs. Getting this down to 1080 ProRes HQ, we're going to get it down to 2.49 gigs. If we go to 422 alone, not the high quality version, it's under 2 gigs. And then LT is even lower, which I don't recommend. Proxy is even lower. I don't recommend. And then 4444, quad 4, 371, so that's bigger. And then XQ is much bigger. Now, if I transcoded this to 422 HQ, 422 just has to do with the complexity is I don't fully understand it, but it has to do with breaking down each pixel and the color within each pixel. I believe. I watched a tutorial on it once. It's really fancy stuff. There's like 420, 422. There's different delineations based on how much data it's keeping. So if we went to 4K instead of 1080, you can see it's actually going to not compress it like we want it to. The file size is actually going to be bigger, which we don't want. We want to make the file sizes smaller because when you eventually archive this footage, you want it to be smaller on your drives so you can keep more footage on more drives instead of filling up drives faster. And you'll see later on, I ultimately up-res that back to 4K on the export, and we'll talk about that then with quality loss and image and all that. But for me, I love this workflow. I don't see enough quality loss for it. It feels painful to like bring it down to 1080, but once you see the outcome and how it actually looks, you wouldn't be bothered by it either. So we're going 1920 by 1080 HD, Apple ProRes, 422HQ. I don't click any of these boxes. Keeping all this stuff the same, linear PCM, 16-bit audio, good to go. So we're getting this down to about a third of the size, okay? So we'll transcode that, we'll let it rip. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and open up a project. This is one of our failed attempts from earlier. I'm just gonna reopen Premiere and start a brand new project. And apologies if this moves a little bit slow. When there's a couple things going on while the screen is recording, it can be a little bit clunky. So just know that a lot of this moves a little bit quicker without me having to record my screen. But I'm doing so for the sake of you guys being able to see all of it. So we're already a quarter of the way done with just 11 clips. When you're dealing with 500 clips, you can imagine this takes hours. So you just have to, when you're transcoding, this is usually something you're going to want to do where you set it and you go do something else, go do gear, go for lunch, could be overnight and you pick it up on the next work day, that kind of stuff. So in the meantime, as this is transcoding, I'm going to open up a new Premiere project. I do use Premiere 2019 because when I started using 2020 outside of this workflow, Premiere was crashing on me a lot. And I'm sure, as you know, if you use Premiere or have used it in the past or here at Stigma Online, it tends to crash quite a bit and it hasn't been getting better. It might be part of the reason why I want to switch over to DaVinci. But with this workflow, I've found a way with ProRes where I haven't had to switch, and I've been perfectly happy with Premiere for like the past year and a half because it just doesn't crash when I edit with ProRes because it just works so nicely together. All right, so we're going to wait for that to come up. I'll go through my due diligence on the slides too, but I wrote ProRes is the GOAT. It will make your editing so much faster. It can take up more space. Like if you aren't shooting RAW or a big codec that's bloated with tons of space, it might actually increase the size of your files. So just know that too. So it might not be a workflow that actually decreases the amount. But if you're using big, fat, bloated codecs, it will probably decrease it. So we'll start a new project. We'll say test for course. Cool. And as you saw there in that second line, I have a whole folder, desktop, work, Premiere, and I've set that. So all of my projects get saved in the Premiere folder on each computer like that. And that's important because you want to know where your project is. And it's important to go into your settings. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Yes, preferences, autosave, turn it on, save every 3 minutes. Got it? Maximum 100 versions. I'm actually going to increase that to 250. Yeah, because why not, right? So every 3 minutes, all right? Because if it does crash on you or you get the spinning pinwheel of death and you have to force quit, at least you have an automatic save from 3 minutes ago. Just a little tip, okay? We're going to import those 11 transcoded clips, okay? Boom, import, okay? And here I'm going to delineate with these 3 bars. This is how you can, it's like the metadata of your clips. I always click media start and that organizes it to be sequential. And that's what I want. Okay. If I drag one of these clips, which is a 1080 clip, into the timeline, it will make a 1080 file, 1920 by 1080. The reason I'm getting black bars on top and bottom is because the actual format I was filming, the 4K RAW that I was filming on the C200, shoots in a 17 by 9 aspect ratio instead of a 16 by 9 aspect ratio. So that means that all of the quality is still there. It's just longer. So I could change that, and I will change that because the sequence settings of my project are different because I like a 2:3:9 to 1 aspect ratio, which is super cinematic. Don't want to get ahead of myself too much. Here we go. I keep the working files. I want to do my due diligence on these slides. Remember, I keep all the working files on an SSD or on the computer. Sometimes I'll work on a spinning disk drive. When you're working with ProRes, it's not too bad. But solid state or your computer is going to be the most efficient workflow and the quickest because you don't have any moving parts with the spinning disks. So if you have the ability to do a workflow where you can work off of one of these, highly recommend. Or if you have enough space on your computer to do it there as well. And then eventually archiving to the spinning disk drives and having just a mess ton of those, which I do. So now we're going to frame the project a bit. So we created the sequence, right? You can drag a clip in here, but that doesn't mean anything because we want to actually change the sequence settings. I have this bookmarked on my Chrome. It is an aspect ratio website that helps you figure out aspect ratios for every different resolution. So it's unravel.com.au/aspect-ratio-cheat-sheet. If I can link it somewhere, I will. And so we're going to go down to 4K. And we want the really cinematic wide. If you see it on YouTube, sometimes YouTubers cheat and put black bars on top and bottom. The reason I like this aspect ratio is it gives me flexibility to move the footage up and down, but ultimately it looks more cinematic in my opinion. It has that really widescreen movie kind of look, and it's actually emulating the anamorphic look from Days of Old. I talked about that in the previous module. So we will go to 4K and we'll look at 239, not 4K. We're going to up-res to that later. We want HD because we're in 1080 from the transcode. And we'll look at 239 to 1. So 1920 by 804. Okay? So we'll go into Premiere, hit Sequence Settings. And right here, we're going to change this to Custom. And we want it to be 223.976. That is our most cinematic frame rate, right? And that's the frame rate we chose to shoot in camera, okay? It's not currently 1920 by 1080. We want this to be, what did we say? 804. 804, okay? And if you choose to do 4K for your project, then you would do the 239 under the 4K. So if you're 17 by 9, you could do 4096 by 1716. If you're in UHD, which is the 38 by 40 width, then that would be 3840 by 1608. Definitely look up this online and save it as a bookmark in your browser as well. Helps me with aspect ratios anytime I want to change that. So now I'm 1920 by 804. That is marked down here as well. Boom. Okay, this will change everything in the timeline. Okay, boom. See, now we're super wide. But you can tell it chopped off the top and the bottom, right? So if I click this effect controls panel and I hit motion, I can see how much more of the frame is still in there. Now, as I mentioned in the early module, I have those bars and I have this aspect ratio on my monitor. So I'm cognizant of shooting with this in mind. And in this case, what I would do is, oh, that went really quickly. I'm gonna go with my mouse instead because that was really sensitive. Oh, it is just really being sensitive for some reason. Yeah, so I'm just going to change the value by numbers because it's being ridiculous. But usually you can move that with your mouse. I don't know why it's being weird right now. I think screen recording's messing with it. Yeah, I'm like typing in a different value and it's like going to somewhere crazy. Anyway, it might be because I'm not rendered here. Let's go back to 540. Yeah, there it is. That was weird. So yeah, I might want to, and that's like, I don't know, that's a garbage clip anyway. So if we go to something like this, bring it into the timeline, right, we're here, and we can move it up and down like so, right? And if you really want to see where your frame ends, you can just click the little motion to see where your blue lines are to move it up and down. Again, this gives me flexibility in post to move these around. Okay, it still looks super gray, right? Because we shot in a log profile in RAW in this case. So we're saving the dynamic range. What I like to do, before I really get into more of the sequence settings, I will get into audio, but I'll just give this little tidbit right here. What I like to do is I like to see the color of the film. So right away, I will go to this new item down here under clips, and I will make an adjustment layer, and it's the same aspect ratio as the project, 1920 by 804. And I will put that adjustment layer on top of all my footage, and I'll usually bring it all the way to like 6 minutes, because that's about how long the film will be. And I just like to put a Rec 709 LUT on this to bring this up to true to life color. I currently am using Tyler Edwards' Rec 709 LUTs, but what's really fun is I'm getting a Rec 709 from Gamut, who is the company that's doing my LUTs with me, and that's going to be dropped and I think available by the time the course launches. So keep an eye out for that as well. But for now, I'm going to go to my Lumetri color panel. I will go to Creative, and I will go through this little list, which you can put all of your LUTs in a LUT folder. So if I go to Desktop, Work, LUTs, all of my LUTs are here. Okay, so it's pulling from there. So here I will put the C-Log 2 base Rec 709 on there. And I don't know why it just went away. Okay, sorry, I had a weird little computer glitch. It's all fixed now. We added an adjustment layer, right? We went here, adjustment layer. It's the same as the sequence, 1920 by 804. Press OK. It's already made right here. So adjustment layer, we drag it over. I like to do this just so I can visualize what the actual colors look like instead of just gray blobby footage. Some people don't like to do this because it will slow your footage down. It will, but for me, I just really want to see what it looks like. So I have a whole LUT folder, work, LUTs. There's creative LUTs in here, but I have Tyler Edwards conversion LUTs, Rec 709. He has all the C-Logs. C200 says raw is C-Log 3, but it always works way better with a C-Log 2 curve. So I think it's a C-Log 2 curve. But if you're shooting on the R6 or C70, they all have log. Oh, C70 has log 2, but like R6 has log 3. So you'd want to be using that Rec 709. Rec 709 is just taking it from that gray blob to like true to life color. The cool thing about Tyler's is he has these C-Log to Rec 709 LUTs, but they all have kind of their own little variations. So since I have that folder, I can pull from it in the creative tab over here, and I'm just gonna go with C-Log 2 to faithful. Great. So that's way more true to life. Like, yeah, it might be a little blue, but I'm gonna change that later. So you see with, without, just way better viewing experience in my opinion. So I'll typically do that just so I'm feeling better about how it looks. And I'm feeling more creative in the process as I'm listening to audio, and I get a better idea of how the whole film is going to look outside of being totally desaturated. Before I keep moving to the other panels, I'm going to touch on them briefly first. Let's just do that. So we did color grading a bit. This is basic, just Rec 709. And then later I'll go through the second layer that I do, the creative layer, and then how I go individually into each specific clip and adjust in the Lumetri panel like I typically do for photography. So we touched on that. This is the effects panel, which is what I edit in. So I have all of my motion stuff over here. Really fancy things with if I wanted to mask stuff, which we're not really going to get into. My Lumetri color is baked in now right there. And then it has audio. I never really look at scopes. This is a way to judge how much color and exposure is in each frame. So it's literally showing all of the RGB, red, green, blue in the image and how underexposed and overexposed different parts of the images are. I don't get that fancy with color grading. Plenty of people do. It's your prerogative. You could edit in the editing panel, but I like the effects panel because I like being able to come up to this effects thing here and type in all the things I want, like constant power for audio, or if I wanted an exponential fade, or if I wanted warp stabilizer. The audio mixer panel is really helpful too, because this shows, if you click that little arrow, this shows each line of audio. So I have 4 lines. I have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So anything I put in here is going to affect that whole line of audio. And then there's a master at the end, which will affect all of it. Highly, highly, highly recommend that you're going into your audio files. I rarely use Scratch Audio, but if I did here, the C200 does 4 different audio tracks, which is overkill. I'd have to hit unlink here and then delete all of them and keep just that one. And then with that, I can change the decibel levels in the effects panel. So I can make it quieter or louder with that. And I can keyframe all those positions. So if I wanted to go -8 here to 0, that would be a slow crescendo of noise. So that'd be quieter to louder. So you might want to do that for speeches. Later on, we'll get into that. But what's really, this is the most profound thing, and I say it on the next slide, the cheat code is the multi-band compressor on broadcast, okay? So if we go over here, amplitude compression, we want multi-band compressor, and we want this thing on broadcast, okay? That compresses, so all of the stuff that is too quiet, it will bring up, and all the stuff that is pretty loud, it will bring down to a solid level across the whole film. So as long as you're changing your decibel levels in the specific tracks, so ducking the music down when the speech comes up and in, the broadcast will just bring everything up to the front and be perfectly mixed for the final edit. So there's not points that are super loud and there aren't points that are super quiet. Getting ahead of myself, we'll get into that more. So that's audio mixing panel. Sound design is what we'll incorporate in the edit, and I'll show you what that looks like with adding different sounds into the soundscape underneath your music and your speeches and vows and all that good stuff. And then text and graphics is the last one. This is something I barely want to touch on because I haven't even been using graphics in my recent films, but a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start out a film with, just a couple's name. If that's something you're into, you can do that as well. You don't need to use legacy title. A lot of people think you have to go to File, New, Legacy Title. That was like an old way to get titles in Premiere. You can literally just click this little T. T. Boom. Words. Okay. So here we have Max and Michelle. So, and the vibiest way, like everybody does, we type in all caps Max plus Michelle. Duh. I really like this font that I have called Gotham. Very expensive. Got it from a commercial project. Not mad about it. Bold. So Gotham Bold. I usually like to make it a lot smaller. 30. Or we can use like my the font I've been using for all my stuff recently, Carter's, which I really like too. That's all caps though, and I don't like the caps version. That's what the slide deck is. It's all Carter's, Max, and Michelle. It's a bit more vibey. But what I really like to do, I feel like it's just a really cinematic thing to do, is just spread out the words, right? With this little VA thing. And then I can center it left to right and top to bottom. Very cool. Max and Michelle. Very minimalist, very cool. You can fade that in and out with some keyframes, so your opacity can be at 100 at the start or at the middle. We can go 0 at the start, so fade in. See that nice fade in? And then you can hit another keyframe at 100 and just fade it out. So we get this nice look. Max and Michelle. And fade it out. Cool. Okay, a couple little technical things before we get started with the audio. Now, one of my favorite parts, and honestly the most important part for me, selecting music. Okay, music selection. I do everything through MusicBed, and I send an email saying, hey, here's we're ready to select the music now. So pumped to do this, and then I build a playlist for them. So on MusicBed, I can show you right here all the different things you can search. You can search by genre. So I really like indie. I like cinematic. I go to mood. I might go with uplifting, maybe happy. Okay, you can search by artist. You can search by attributes. So say you're shooting a wedding in Hawaii and you want some ukulele, you can come down and find ukulele down here. Where is it? Oh no, that's on the next one on instrument. Ukulele, boom. There's attributes. So even more like specific vibes and feelings you have. And then there's advanced, which is really sick. BPM, how fast the song is. You can dial in the exact BPM or select slow, medium, medium, fast, and fast. And key, so sick. If you find a song that you really like and find what key it's in, then you can find all other songs that are also in that key. And that's really amazing for being able to blend certain songs. You can go super geeky, find something the same BPM and same key, and probably just mix and match the song, that's like next level, but really cool. Then you can pick lyrical and instrumental. And a lot of musicians on here who have lyrical music also have an instrumental music along with it. So once this is picked, you can see like I really like all those selections. So cinematic, indie, happy, uplifting. You can see there are a lot of hearted and favorited songs within this search already because I've already listened to these categories and really like this music. So a lot of times I'm listening to stuff, and if it's not catching my attention, I don't like it within the first 10 to 15 seconds, I'll just move on to the next one. Like this one is too like driving down the highway, well now too much. No, don't. This one I've already listened to and I love. And I'm looking for stuff that's dynamic, meaning quiet to loud, swelling, things that drive, good lyrics. So I like this beginning. You have like this swelling cinematic open, and just like really good lyrics and like driving guitar. Love Chapters are like my favorite band of music. Spread over and over among us. Cool. So I love looking at the sound waves at the bottom, at the waveforms. You can see that this song crescendos to be much louder, and it has this dip down moment. So it's building, it's building, it's building. I love looking for this on the waveforms. I love seeing it over here too. So it's coming down. Then we have this really quiet part, which is always great for like vows, speeches, first look audio, anything where there's voice. This is a really good place to like put something really profound. And just to get into my creative head, like, did you hear what he said in these lyrics here? Like right here. When I saw you for the first time. When I saw you for the first time. Now, if the couple has anything in their vows or any speech where it talks about them seeing each other for the first time, that could be an incredible place to put it. I'm always trying to think of like creatively, how does audio start building the story? And you can use the music to do that as well. There's so much serendipity in lyrics from like romantic indie songs where you hear something and then you're like, oh wait, that person said that. And if you don't remember just from memory, go back to your project and okay, so now we're going to import. So this was just building the bones of the project. So now we're going to import all the audio from the project. And that's really where I'm going to build the entire story. So I just imported the whole folder. So now what I want to do is go through here and bring all of these. Now first I'm going to figure out, because I always do 3 different forms of audio, right? For ceremony and for speeches. So there's a bunch of different versions in here. So I'm going through and finding the best one first. The best form of audio for the speeches.
Background before I just.
So say I chose that one. And a beautiful thing, I don't have this clip in here right now, but a really amazing thing you can do. I'm going to bring this speech all the way down here. One of my favorite features in Premiere. Say this is the clip with the speech and you have your external audio for the speech. You can highlight this entire thing, right click, and hit synchronize. When you do that, it will find that place, which it's not going to here because they're not matched clips, but it will find that place within the timeline. So say it will snap to that part for you. And then you go ahead and you can cut out that specific part in the good audio, remove the front and the back, and then get rid of your original scratch audio, which sadly I have to hit unlink first. Get rid of those 4, and I just bring it back up. And then it's your choice. You can link these back up too if you want. So you could right click, hit link. Now I like to do that for I like to do that for all the audio because then I can see a visual of the person talking. I can see the vows happening. I will line up all of that audio off to the right over here, outside of my timeline for the actual film in those like 6 minutes. And I will go through and take a pen and paper, and I will, like I said, take notes with the pen and paper or notes on my phone. And I'll literally write down timestamps on these different pieces of audio with profound things that people are saying, so that I at least have a memory of all the good things that were said, so that when I go through and I'm going through music and listening to the music that we choose, I can incorporate both together and be inspired by both. Okay. Before I even start doing all of that, I got way too ahead of myself. I typically send a full suite or collection of music to my clients before I even build that project. Okay, so when I'm going through and I'm searching right here with all this stuff on MusicBed, what I can also do is hit this little plus button and add it to a project. So right here, I'm working on a project for this October. They asked me for some songs in advance. So I'm building that collection right now. So if I wanted to add this one to that collection, which I actually want to, I'm gonna hit save. And if I go over to my own personal, my projects up in the top right in my account, my projects, I can go over to the projects tab, and now all of the selects I have for that wedding live in here. And the beautiful thing about this is if I go back here, I have this project and I can hit this little button for share right here, and it gives me a custom URL that I can type in an email and send to clients. This is one of the biggest frustrations I hear from wedding filmmakers is they edit an entire film and their client is frustrated with the music that they chose. This process solves that frustration because you send them a list of, I usually do 8 to 10 songs, maybe 8 to 12 songs. And I say, hey, pick your favorite, pick your next favorite and your third. And I might use 1 or 2 of those. And then from there, I might choose the alternate version or the instrumental to complement it. It's a really good way for you to get what you want in the music that you like, and then have them have some control in the process as well, and just kind of let your ego go and let them sort of pick that. A lot of times I have couples that are just like, you know what, I trust you. Just go ahead and pick what you like. We like these ones, but we trust what you're doing. And sometimes if I'm really convinced of a song that I feel like a song is going to fit really, really well for a film, I'll be like, hey, I'm giving you this list, but honestly, I'm in love with this one by Chapters. We should probably go with it. That's what happened with Ben and Emily, one of my best wedding films as of late. They said they actually didn't even listen to the list of music. They were like, oh, if you like it that much, just go ahead. Yeah, go ahead with Photographed by Chapters. So that's what we did. Okay, so we select the music, and then I'm bringing that music into Premiere as well, and I'm laying that music down all at the same time, where I'm then listening to all the audio from speeches, from vows, all that good stuff. Okay, so in this audio panel, you could see I had Photograph in here, but I have 3 versions, right? I have the alt version, I have the normal version, I have the instrumental of the normal version. I really like the alt version and the cinematic qualities of it. So just like listen to this. Takes a minute. You hear bird chirping, right? That's amazing. There's birds chirping. And that's so helpful for me because there are birds chirping during the first look at Max and Michelle's wedding. You have this beautiful swell coming in. It feels very ethereal, great for scene setting. I like to just listen to this music and just visualize what I want to be there before I even start laying footage in there. This is why I don't like culling, right? I'm feeling, right? I'm feeling the music. I'm feeling how it's influencing my emotions and what I'm visualizing based on what I already shot. I'm going through here, I'm going, okay, that shot of the road would be great there. Okay, setting the scene at rehearsal dinner would be good here. There's no lyrics yet, so that might be a really good spot to include something that alludes to a bigger piece of the story. Awesome. It's building, so maybe we're building towards something here. I feel that piano coming in. So maybe we're walking now, we're moving towards the ceremony. quiets down quite a bit. And now when it quiets down, that's a great place to come back to the beginning and start recalling the day. I love doing stuff like that. I see a crescendo, I feel crescendo in the music, I want a crescendo in the visuals. When I feel it cut back, I want to go back to simplicity. So all these audio cues are helping me figure out what I want the visuals to be. And then for me, it's so much easier to, instead of mindlessly scrolling through tons of footage for hours and hours and hours, I just go, I know what I want for that part. And then I go back to the footage and I go, what fits there? Great. Scene setting. Great. Scene setting. Boom, boom, boom. Now, meanwhile, I've also listened to all of the audio. So here I might be like, oh, that's a great place for that first look teaser, right? That's a great place. And that's how I open this film, right? With their first look, with that tease of like, oh man, they're like, it's happening. It's in Montana. And then I slowly set the scene with the music on top of that. Okay, don't want to get too far ahead of myself there. So I just want to make sure I got through all of these parts. We went through all of the panels there. We went through music bed. We went through how to find songs on music bed, right, with search. What's great is I also have playlists. So if you literally just search up Eric Floberg music bed playlist, there's a public one. And then I also have one on my Patreon. That's not what I wanted. Right here. Oh, if you search it up, you can find my Patreon one. That's funny. So I guess it's not that hidden, but there's a little secret. And this has some of my favorite ones from the past like year and a half. Just not gonna lie, an epic playlist. So that is just the bones of getting started. Okay, we're not into the editing yet, but
24 hours later,
we are breaking down Ben and Emily's film. Probably the best portfolio piece that I have from 2021 so far. Ben and Emily run two separate businesses based out of Chicago. Ben is a wedding photographer, Ben Ramos Photography, and Emily Zinchuk, his wife, helps run Bread and Honey, and they run that one together. That's like a coaching thing. Anyway, we've known Ben for a while. We've known Emily for a while, and they decided to ask me to photograph the wedding, and they added on video. And I was like, of course we can do that. Mike can jump on video. I'll be photo the whole time. Mike can do video, blah, blah, blah. So it was just me and Mike. They had a pretty simple wedding, maybe only 60 people at the wedding. And they had the full wedding in Chicago, and then they planned on going to Sedona, which is the place where they went on their first trip together a month into dating. They said, I love you on that trip. It's a very special place for them. Things just happened really fast with their relationship. So they wanted to bring us to both places. We agreed on a price. I gave them a discount because they're my friends, they're industry. I knew it would be a portfolio piece, blah, 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 blah. And I was paying in dividends because I get to share with you all of the edits from it. And the cool thing about this is that I didn't film this wedding. Mike filmed everything. So I was still present, but I got to experience everything and know that context from it. So I still had the ability to kind of pull from my experience with it to create this edit. So I'm just literally going to go like frame by frame, maybe not frame by frame, but clip by clip and sound piece by sound piece and sound design clip by sound design clip and all the coloring and everything I want to show you in the nuance of the edit, since we already went through selecting music and how to synchronize audio and building the project. Now I want to show you just like what the finished product looks like and how I kind of got to that place. Now I'm a very messy timeline editor, and this is probably a good time for me to start my screen record so you can see my screen. Is this the part where I have to sing to you? When I wake up and the sun is set up and the I'm stronger. There's a vibe. Do I take it for a ride? Willow Smith, classic artist. After she whipped her hair back and forth. Okay, let's stop that nonsense. Okay. I think I mentioned this before with doing a Rec 709 LUT and bringing the raw footage to color instead of like gray, the transcoded ProRes. Like we went from raw to ProRes in DaVinci. and then we're taking that gray blob and turning it into color. So I'm just gonna toggle off this top one, which is my creative LUT. So if I just click this little eyepiece right here, that makes everything in that line invisible. And if I click this one, you're gonna see it go from color to absolute gray blob, right? So this is what the ProRes looks like after being converted from RAW, okay? So when I add this adjustment layer that goes all the way across the whole film, almost 5 minutes, you'll see that it puts color into the footage. Now let's go up to the Creative tab right here. I can show you which one I use. C-Log 2 to Rec 709 Faithful Crush. That's the one I decided to use from Tyler Edwards' pack, as I mentioned. So any of these C-Log 2 ones would work, from converting the gray blob of ProRes, raw ProRes, into this footage that looks like real life. And then I have the adjustment layer up top as well to give that creative look. And the adjustment layer I chose here is the Cascade North Flat LUT. So using Benj Heish's presets and converting them into a LUT, I did that personally. I know Benj. So that happened that way. You can take any preset that you have in Lightroom and turn it into a LUT with, I use a software called Look Converter. It's like 15 or 25 bucks or something, but I think you can make them in Lightroom. You can make LUTs, lookup tables, in a multitude of different softwares. So any kind of look that you have as a photo preset, you could turn into a LUT. And you could purchase LUTs anywhere. Instead of trying to figure out that process and matching a preset to look like a LUT, you could just go to Gamut, which is where they sell Cascade. They sell Benj's LUTs. Gamut, GAMUT.io. And then Gamut's also going to host my LUTs when my personal LUTs go available as well. And we're going to make it pretty similar to this, but obviously making a few tweaks and kind of turning it into exactly what I want, because I don't always use a creative LUT at its full opacity, and there's different LUTs that I like using in different scenarios. So I would like to create one that's just kind of more universal across everything. Don't want to get too ahead of myself. Let's just kind of jump into this now. So you can see what these two adjustment layers are for. So one is the Rec 709, and then one is the creative LUT on top of that. Now, every time you see something like this right here, you see I put some of the ceremony footage here, which it doesn't have to be all the way up that high. As you can see, I'm a very messy timeline editor. I have 8 different lines going all the way up here. I have another adjustment layer here because this footage right here isn't raw footage. We don't like to shoot raw the entire ceremony because that would just be an unfathomable amount of data. So in the C200, we shoot a different codec, a different kind of video type. We shoot the MP4 8-bit codec. 8-bit is just in reference to the color and how much color information is in the file. We shoot MP4. And then we also transcode that like we did to ProRes. So this is also ProRes 1080 HQ 422. And then I have a different section of adjustment layer here because it needs to be converted. And I actually put Cascade as a creative LUT on top of it, and I put the conversion LUT on the actual clip. So you can see this one's different, C-Log 3 to Rec 709, because it's the log 3 curve on the MP4 instead of the log 2 curve on the RAW. Okay. Again, if this feels very overwhelming to you, this is something you can watch over and over and over until you start to grasp it, and you can talk in the community group on Facebook to ask any questions you might have, because this might feel really complex if you have never even opened Premiere, okay? Stick with me though, okay? Because there's still plenty of information that's going to be helpful for you. All right, we talked about selecting audio. This is all of the cold audio from the wedding. So you have all of the ceremony here matched with our A audio. We do multiple sources, so I select the best one, the one that sounds the best, right? So I'm listening through all of these and picking the best ones from what I want to use that has the best quality on the film, and I'm synchronizing it like I showed you earlier. And this is where I'll start piecing out different parts that I want. So you see gaps in here. That's because I literally took that clip and brought it over to the master onto the timeline to use that specific clip. or you can just copy, just Command C and then Command V, paste it into here if you'd like. You have to recognize that you have to have these highlighted. Whatever line you have highlighted is where it will paste into. So if I hit copy and wanted to go right here, but I would choose line 4 because then it would go right where that blue line is and it would paste into there. But if I was right here and I was on line 1, it would paste right into what I already have, which I don't want. So you always want to paste into something where there's free space. So I have the ceremony cut here. I have all the speeches cut here. You'll notice that in this one we color coded with different colors. So if you want to color code it to designate different speeches, you can go right click on the clip before you start cutting it up. You can label it and you can choose a different color to label it to signify that one is different than the other. Okay. So from here, I was pulling all of their audio from their vows, right? With clips. So we have the back cam on the top layer, on layer 2, and we have the handheld one that Mike was running around with on
That's your
1.
wife.
And you can see this one's kind of shaky because he had the steady cam, he had the easy
I will
rig,
never
and he was holding
ask
it
you to
there,
be less of yourself.
and he was moving his body to get different looks at this, right? So he was just standing in the center of the aisle while I was just kind of bouncing back and forth on photo. All right, so there's 2 clips for the ceremony there, but they're stacked on top of each other. And then whenever I post that back into the master, I could have 2 different angles to choose from with those different audio clips. All right, so there's the bare bones of that. Sometimes we'll do B-roll selects. This is something Braxton did for me, where in Arizona, he clipped out a ton of the best footage from Arizona. This is just something we worked on with workflow that a lot of people like to do as far as culling goes. Is it on autofocus? Okay, good. Because if this camera was on autofocus, it might drift to the back and then leave me. Never trust autofocus in a situation like this. This is something that I don't like to do. Actually, this is something we were testing out. Like, hey, maybe you can choose some selects. So many people cull footage, meaning they go through all the footage and they pick out all their favorite stuff and kind of leave it in a different sequence like this. By the way, if you want to start a new sequence, you just go up to File, New, Sequence. It'll ask you settings. It'll be the same settings as the project, and you can make a new sequence like that. But you can make this new sequence and do like tons of B-roll footage, and you can bounce back and forth between your master edit and the B-roll sequence and pull stuff back and forth. I just personally hate doing that. I don't like that format. I like looking at the thumbnails like this and clicking into them, scrubbing through them, and selecting in and out points. So say I wanted this part right here, I could click the left bracket and the right bracket and say, okay, I want that part of the clip. And this just is just clip. So it would go in like that from where I selected. And if I wanted the audio, I could also drag in the audio and match that up. But a lot of times I'm just selecting the clip and dragging it in if I have B-roll. And a lot of times I'm just relying on these thumbnails to see, okay, because a lot of times in the film, I'm like, I want this feeling, I want this moment, I know when we shot that, I want this area. Okay, let me find that spot. All right, when Ben was putting on his jacket. Okay, let me see. This is a brown. Okay, right here, Ben was putting on his jacket here. Oh, cool. All right, yep, that's him kind of throwing on last touches there. Okay, that's the clip I want, throw it in. Boom. I do an in and out point, it's in the film, okay? Oh, I want that moment when Emily was putting on her dress. Okay, so then I go over to Emily getting her dress on, final touches of dress. Oh, there's some of Emily putting dress on. Okay, last parts, all right. I want to choose, I chose this part right here, smoothing out the dress. Okay, so I want to clip that part, remember, in and out with the brackets, and I pull that into the scene. That's how I personally like to select footage. It's totally dependent on how you want to do it. I cull all my photos on the photography side. I do not like doing it for video. It really cramps my creative style. I like just kind of moving and flowing as I go and not spending a whole ton of time just going through every single clip and finding the best stuff in each clip. But if you feel like much more type A like that and want to be so much more organized, a lot of people do like that workflow. It's totally up to you. Okay, finally, I've been rambling. I'm so sorry. I'm not sorry. There's a lot of information. I hope it's helpful. So let's go through just kind of clip by clip, like I said, and get going on this. So first of all, I opened up with this film wanting their vows to just be the prominent thing at the beginning. I originally started this film with the Diet Coke story, if you've heard about that. I don't know if you have yet. I shared it on YouTube. I'm sharing it at the end of this course. But it was this whole thing where we surprised them with Diet Cokes. And Diet Cokes mean a lot to Ben because that was the thing he started drinking when they first started dating. I'm going to go into it way later. I ended up I had this first round edit where I put text on the screen like, back when Emily and Ben started dating, Ben was addicted to Diet Coke. And it set this whole context up so that the viewer would know that at the end, at this climactic moment when they busted out the Diet Cokes in Sedona and it was super emotional, they would have context for that. I decided against that because it felt a little too cheesy for me, and it felt like the random audience didn't need to know that detail about them, but it was still something special I could add in at the end for them. And then, yeah, it just kind of felt like a Diet Coke ad. I'm like, it's just not working. And sometimes that's okay. You might start on a film and then just be like, I need to scratch this. And I do that from time to time where I'm like, I don't like the trajectory of this. I'm going to start in a different place. And so what I did here, and something I've been really loving doing, I put Ben's vows at the beginning with this little sequence. So let's just play it real quick.
It blows my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me. My whole life before you, my heart had been searching for yours. The minute I met you, I knew I was home.
Okay, so he said, my whole life I was searching for you, and the minute I met you, I knew I was home. Okay, what's really special is Emily was getting ready at their home. Okay, so connecting these visuals with audio that they say in their vows, I think that's really special. Now, the reason I made his voice sound like that was it's just like this really nostalgic, like reflective quality on his voice that wasn't just like he was standing in a room, but this kind of dream sequence of like, wow, let us remember our wedding day.
In my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me. My whole life before you, my heart had been searching for yours. The minute I met you, I knew I was home.
Okay, so I put this radio effect, which you can find in Premiere, on this. All right, so it has it all stacked up in here, which looks really complicated. You don't need to add all these 4 things. Basically, all you do is you go into Essential Sound, which is on the right panel. I'm in the effects panel. I always edit in the effects panel unless I need to change audio or I need to go into graphics. I always bounce in between effects, audio, and graphics. And this one all the way to the right was just Armin, a guy who's edited for me every once in a while. He made his own custom bracket. So if we go to effects over here, you can go to all of these different effects that you can put on a voice. So if I wanted to do from, I have right now, I think I have from the radio, or no, I have over the intercom. So if I wanted to do from outside a building, this is what it would sound like.
It blows my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me. My whole life before
so you can't hear him. This is just, oh my goodness, my space bar. This computer, I need a new laptop. From outside the building would be something like if you had dialogue going and you just had like Foley in the background of people outside the bar while there was a conversation happening in the bar. That's when you would use something like this. I don't want that. I wanted the one that was over the intercom to get that kind of like over the radio kind of voice. I think I chose this one because I didn't like the radio version as much as over the intercom.
In my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me. My whole life before you, my heart had been searching for yours.
It was too muted, so I wanted to go to something that felt a little bit stronger.
It blows my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me.
It's much more clear like that, okay? So, and you might notice also you hear something else. You hear like a shh sound, right? So let's hear this line. You hear it start to grow, you hear it start to grow, and cut, okay? This is a big waterfall sound, okay? So I pulled that straight from Zapsplat, where I normally pull Foley audio or sound design audio, and I'm gonna talk more about that in a later module. So I just literally took a waterfall sound, which I use this sound quite a lot if I'm doing a dream sequence like this. I cut a certain section out of it, like I showed you earlier with these brackets, right? I placed it in underneath this dream sequence, and then you can see that I slowly rose the decibel level to make it louder and louder with these keyframes here. So I started at negative 35 decibels, and I worked my way all the way up to negative 20, and then eventually to around negative 8, where it cuts out, okay? And then it cuts out at that opportune point where his audio stops and the song really starts, okay? Or at least that cut in the song starts. Because if we listen to the song now, this is the song track. And I'm doing the same thing about bringing it up with these keyframes. So you can see by the time he starts singing, it's at 0 decibels. And you can see that I put all these keyframes in to slowly raise the volume of this thing as it swells to the point of pull it back. And the lyrics come in, okay? And I forgot what I put on this last line. Let me just see what it is. Okay, so this is just another one from Zapsplat, and it's just city sounds, okay? This one actually might be from ArtGrid sound effects. So ArtGrid also has a whole library of sound effects. So I have this going in the background too with city vibes, because we start in this first shot of Ben standing by the city, and it was in Chicago. So you hear like the cars going by, squeaking brakes, and it slowly fades away into that cut. Okay, so we heard all that sound design. It's all working together. Let's play it all together again in harmony.
It blows my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me. My whole life before you, my heart had been searching for yours. The minute I met you, I knew I was home.
Come walk with me.
And again, you can hear all those city sounds happening again. Okay, so I'm choosing different parts of the city sounds. I'm making them loud, I'm cutting them down, and drowning them out to transition into the next sound. But you can hear that there's an individual sound on each one because there's different scenes. And when you hear this underneath music, you don't think anything of it, but psychologically it changes your ability to watching it. It's telling your brain, hey, different scene, different scene, different scene. All very intentional things that I'm doing within this film. You can see all of the care and concern I'm putting into all of these different decisions, right? Something that altogether is going to create something very profound in the viewing experience, okay? So when I do this dream sequence, you can see I'm doing a lot of quick cuts, right? We have the house because he's mentioning home.
For you, my heart had been searching for yours.
It's searching for yours.
I knew I was home.
When he said my heart is searching for yours, I have this solo shot of Emily and Sedona, shaking in the wind, her hair in the wind. Really cool. And then this last blue hour shot of them running, I put it in reverse to kind of just be like this callback. I love this shot of her looking at the camera. And I wanted to end on that with her staring at the camera there.
It blows my mind that just 3.5 years ago, you were a stranger to me.
You were a stranger to me.
My whole life before you, my heart had been searching for yours. The minute I met you...
And even the juxtaposition of, you were a stranger to me, except I'm showing footage of them, of her and them in their home, right? And it cuts to, I knew I was home.
The minute I met you, I knew I was home.
Again, now all these, I'm not going to individually go through every single clip, but I'm going to cut to the end real quick so I don't have to cover this later. When I do, I touched on the adjustment layer of Rec 709 first, and then the creative LUT on top of that. Each clip still needs individual tweaking, because that blanket thing over all of the clips isn't going to work for everything, because every scene has different light, every scene has different contrast ratio, every scene has different shadows, every scene is different. So I go into each one individually towards the end. This is after I'm done with everything. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just get excited about this. A lot of me wants to color the film right away because I just love experiencing how cool it looks right away. Again, do what you will with that, because that might not be the most efficient thing, but I like doing that because it motivates me creatively. I go into basic corrections and I treat this like I'm editing a photo. So here you can see that I brought contrast down a little bit. I brought the highlights down to highlight the outside so it's not as bright, right? Brought shadows down, and then I increased the saturation a little bit, and I didn't change any white balance. But you can see that every single one of these clips has a little bit of a tweak from me, as if I'm editing a photo every single time, to get it to look exactly how I want it. Now, a good place to start on a lot of these clips is just taking this white balance stripper and finding white and getting your white balance that way. I probably could have done that on that. It's not the most color correct image, but it definitely gives a vibe, kind of this filmic looking vibe with green in the whites. All right, moving on from this little section here, we have that sound design with the music starting.
Come walk with me down the only
Again, cutting that sound design every single time it changes. Okay, I want you to take notice of every time I cut one of these, we have city, 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 detail, detail in the city in Chicago where they're getting married. And every time you hear a hit in the song, you see them go do something in Sedona. So I'm sneaking, you obviously saw it in the beginning, I'm sneaking the fact that this isn't just Chicago, this is also in a different and beautiful place with a beautiful landscape. So this is showing the stranger who's watching this, wow, this is interesting. This is more than just like a couple getting married in a city. So you see you hear those cuts in the music. You hear the da-da, 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 and I'm cutting to that beat when you hear that sound in the song. And again, I'm cutting back and forth between Chicago, Sedona, Chicago, Sedona, Chicago, Chicago. So now I start going a little bit more sequential. Let's hear what we have in sound right here. Hear that? There's crickets. So I brought a little bit of that cricket sound into Sedona. As it was approaching blue hour here, I was introducing some of that like atmospheric sound to kind of bring you into the Sedona vibe. You could just faintly hear it. Right? Okay, so now I'm going more sequential, going back to Chicago and saying, hey, they're getting ready now. This is their Chicago wedding, they're getting ready now. Okay, let me play this through.
Come talk with me, stay and watch the day grow. I've been waiting for the
Okay, so we had this look of Ben and his best man, getting him ready at the last point right here. Brett, and then his other one, Yoni, and then Emily and her mom, and that tear that she's wiping. Always looking for opportunities where if you're catching those emotions, getting those little vignettes of emotion.
day grow.
So I have this hit in the music,
I've been waiting for the
and a lot of this has already been quick cuts, quick cut, get you interested, quick cut, get you interested, getting ready, and this beautiful part of the song right here where it cuts to
watch the day grow.
sit and watch the day grow old. I love playing off of lyrics. I love playing off of different parts of sounds and matching some sort of visual that makes it look and feel like the music and the lyrics that you're hearing. Sit and watch the days grow old.
Watch the day grow.
Sit and watch the day grow old. And they're sitting over this valley in Sedona where they've had their first trip. And there's this beautiful push-in right here I did digitally. So this is just a shot that was sitting on them forehead to forehead. And you can see that I put a scale of 100 right here. And I started zooming in the clip. Now I cut the clip later, so that's why you don't see another keyframe here, but it ends at about 107 on the scale. So digitally, I'm literally zooming into this frame. So if I had another keyframe here, it would just look like that, with another keyframe here, and it's going from 100 zoom to 106. And when you're rewatching this, you can see that push in happen.
The day grow. I've been waiting.
The key to this is that you want to make it really subtle. You want this to just be this slow push in that's kind of bringing you into that experience, kind of bringing you into their world. I talked on Ben Journey's podcast today. He's on a brand called Make Better Wedding Films. And I talked about how I'm constantly trying to take all of the emotions and the feelings and the senses that the people in this scenery are feeling and communicate them to the viewer, to us watching it. The screen being the interference of which you can experience that feeling. So I'm constantly trying to think, what kinds of tools and things can I use in that between the two worlds to try to break down that wall and make the viewer feel like they are there and like they are experiencing this actual thing that's happening over here. It's really like ethereal kind of idea of what's going on, but you using your gear and using these editing skills is going to communicate that stuff better than you just kind of throwing clips on a timeline over songs, but doing these little things that just draw the viewer in. Now, the average person isn't going to notice that you're doing this stuff, but it's going to enhance that overall experience, these small little things here and there that eventually lead to something where it's like, wow, I don't know how they did that. I don't know why I feel this way, but I do. And just a small little push-in can make you feel that little tug on your heart. Just brings you into that moment.
I've been waiting for the moment to arrive.
I knew I was home.
So I love doing moments where it's like it's this high-stake moment where something's about to happen, and then I don't allow for the reaction to make you feel like, oh, I'm yearning to see what that reaction was, and keeps that retention of the viewer, like what is going to happen. It gives you that little bit of a cliffhanger. So I show you like, okay, they got ready, they're in Sedona eventually, but then, okay, we're clearly back in Chicago. I'm recalling those sounds, right? City sound again. Boom. Getting those bus squeaks, the brake squeaks, the cars, and I fade that out, right? But we have. I
was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
Really creative thing I love, where I took that little section that I love.
I knew I was home.
I knew I was home. I knew I was home, and I repeated that 4 times with that radio. From the radio, what was it called? No, I didn't choose from outside. Oh, I did. I switched it to from outside the building to these because I wanted it to sound a bit different. Okay, so hear the difference.
I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
And I slowly got it quieter and quieter. You can see the decibel levels on each of these. So every clip, this one was at 4 decibels. This one was at 4. Oh, I thought they were different. No, they definitely get more intense. So let's see where I did that. I had outside of a building on that one. Yeah, I'm changing the amount of the intensity on the preset. So you can see on this one, it was at 0 for the amount. This one was at 1.6. This one, the intensity was 3.6 on outside of a room. And this last one was 5.9 for outside of a room. Okay, so you see that, and you can hear it again. Ready?
I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
You can hear it get quieter and quieter. And when it's matched with the music,
I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
The reason I love making that quieter is because the music starts to crescendo and get louder. So it's this inverse reaction, right? You have the voice getting quieter and the music getting louder as that happens. So this is happening, right?
Home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
Ben?
But then the music changes again and gets quiet. Now, this is what I love to do. I got, as I mentioned earlier, I get the normal version and I get the instrumental version. Now, in this part, I switched to the instrumental version of the song. Now, if I throw the instrumental version of the song in here, what I would do originally is I would probably throw it here. You can see the song starts at the same exact place the song on the original starts, but I cut it right at this point where I need it to match this moment where I want to cut. Right here, I get rid of that first part and I slide that back up into, and then I transition into the instrumental part. Something that really helps to transition them is this constant power tool in the effects. Constant power, put it in right like that. I'm gonna just hit undo on all that so I get it back to the original. But it's really easy to just line up the normal song and the instrumental. You can even line up both of them outside over here like I do with other things. Put both of them there and then just kind of cut and take different parts and slide them in to your edit over here. Okay? And every time you notice, I knew I was home, I knew I was home, I knew I was home, right? He kept saying that and I did clips of their home.
I knew I was home.
To emphasize.
I knew I was home. I knew I was home. I knew I was home.
Ben,
Now we're cutting into her vowels.
I want you to know,
Ben.
I wrote
So I love doing this. Sometimes I'll come back. Okay, I'm back to the beginning of the day now. I'm going back to getting ready again.
these vows sitting at my desk,
Some details.
staring at the first Valentine's gift I bought you.
Okay, so I think our audio on the line out of the speaker didn't work for some reason. So I was pulling audio from either the Efficient's lapel or Ben's lapel. So that's how you hear Emily's audio is a bit more echoey, okay? Now, this is a very new understanding for me. I put multi-band compressor on her voice here to clean it up, okay? Now, after consulting Mike recently with more audio, so putting multi-band compressor on any kind of audio, any kind of speech audio, any kind of vowels is going to help a ton, especially in Premiere if you do multi-band compressor on the broadcast setting, okay? So to find that, if you did it this way, you would type in multi-band compressor into your effects panel. You would find that, you would stick it on the clip, right? Stick it on the audio clip, and then you would have it in here, and you click edit, and you would do broadcast setting, okay? That's how you would apply in here. I don't recommend that actually, okay? What I do recommend is you go to the audio tab, and let's see if I did it on this film or not. Spinning pinwheel of death. Oh, I actually put it on the first line. What I do recommend, which I didn't do here, so that's a big no-no, I would recommend you put it on this master track all the way down here, okay? So you would go up here to this drop-down arrow, click amplitude and compression, multi-band compressor, and you would double-click that multi-band compressor and hit broadcast. Now this is going to put the multi-band compressor and broadcast setting on the whole film. So every piece of audio will be compressed. What this means is every quiet part will be brought up to be louder to match the louder parts. And if the loud parts are really loud, it will compress it down and bring everything to a near equal amount. So that, you know, if you ever hear those times when you're watching a video on YouTube or whatever, and one part's like super loud and you're like, oh, that's because they weren't matching with multi-band compressor like that. So this is something that's very new to me that I'm still learning as well. Obviously, I was dealing with multi-band compressors, but I was only putting them on individual tracks here. What I do recommend, and what Mike recommended to me, is that you only change the decibel levels of your audio clips here, right, in decibels, up or down. So increasing or decreasing with, you can do them with keyframes. You can also do it in the audio panel if you want to put it on one specific line, because each of these represent every line. So audio 1, A1 matches up with A1 down here, A2 with A2, and so on. And the last one's master. But you can see on audio line 1, I put a multi-band compressor and then brought it down to 3 decibels here on broadcast setting. So it's okay that I did it on one line, but it would be better if I did it on none of the lines and put it on the master, like I said. So the classic, do as I say, not as I do. But recently, all my stuff, I have been putting that multi-band compressor on the master track and just individually changing the decibel levels on all of the different audio tracks to try to emphasize some stuff without it blowing out and quiet some stuff without it, you know, being too loud, blowing out, or stuff being too quiet, and just kind of bringing the levels and tweaking them a little bit more piece by piece, and having the multi-band compressor on broadcast setting bring everything to a nice even level all the way across. Something you just saw there that hopefully I can find, because I'm pulling a Michael Scott and starting a sentence and not knowing how I'm going to finish it. Autosave, okay? That's something that's really important. It's one of those things that you set and then never remember how to get back to it. Let me just find it, because this is so important. It'll be under preferences, autosave. Yes, and then you can automatically save. I have it set to every 3 minutes, and the maximum amount of versions is 500. Hey, let's have a check-in. Look at me. Look at me in the tiny little corner. Hey, this is a lot of information, right? All right. I understand if you need to pause, and you need to take a break, take a little pee-pee break, you know, drink some water, get some coffee, any of that, that's fine. This is so much information. Again, I'm going to say it again. If you feel overwhelmed, it's okay. Just keep listening, all right? You know what happens when people learn languages? They don't understand them. You know the best way to learn the language? You immerse yourself in it, okay? You sit there and you listen to people converse in that language. Same stuff here, all right? You hear this stuff over and over. You watch this module over and over. You watch more tutorials online over and over. You have friends in the industry. You talk about these things over and over. You will start to pick up words. You'll start remembering things. You'll start becoming fluent in the language of editing. Again, if you feel like it's overwhelming, just take it one step at a time, okay? You got this. All right, let's keep moving on. We are going to get through this film. I know we're only 30 seconds in, but we're going to get there.
Ben,
okay, it is going to move a lot faster because we're going to have redundant information through the rest of this, okay? So I'm going to move a little bit of a quicker pace to kind of get through the rest of this. There is a lot of stuff that is repetitive, okay? Every time you see me cut something in one of the audio clips, you see that I put this constant power over to make sure, because sometimes if you don't put that constant power there, when you switch to audio clips, you'll hear a little pop, and you don't want that. You want a smooth transition from one clip to the other so it feels seamless. So let's hear what Emily has to say here.
I want you to know I wrote these vows sitting at my desk, staring at the first Valentine's gift I bought you. The canvas of you and I on our first ever trip together in Arizona, where we will be returning in just a few short days. I can't even begin to explain how life-changing those few days were. At the time, it felt like forever until I'd be able to marry you. And it seems as though I blinked. And now here we are.
Okay, so we have this incredible moment of her talking about Arizona and Sedona, right? And we have just crazy heartfelt emotion of what it feels like to be standing there now. So over that, and as you notice, like I have all of this footage of her underneath. Like if I click out these, and it looks terrible because that's MP4 and the Rec 709 for C-Log 2. That's why it looks like garbage. And that's why I had to move it to up here when I actually used this clip, right? All of this is sitting underneath the clips that I actually use, because sometimes I will lay out that clip fully and I'll start cutting it up, and then I'll start putting clips over it. So that's why you see the two clips from the ceremony, the two angles with her voice, and then all of my B-roll that I spliced over it on top of that with the two more lines. So we're all the way up to line 4 for that.
I want you to know I wrote these vows sitting at my desk, staring at the first Valentine's gift I bought you. The canvas of you and I on our...
Notice she said sitting at my desk, and I intentionally did this shot where her desk is in the background as she is looking at her dress. Any chance I can get, right? I know these guys, I know where they work, I know they're home, like, I know them. So this is really helpful for telling the story better. Again, small little things.
Canvas of you and I on our first ever trip together in Arizona, where we...
In Arizona, clearly I'm going to show some footage of Arizona when she mentions it.
We'll be returning in just a few short days.
Notice on the hits and the music again, dot, dot. I'm getting those hits on the clips, dot, dot.
Where we will be returning in just a few short days. I can't even begin to explain how life-changing those few days were.
I can't even begin to explain how life-changing those few days were. Long shot again, just like at the beginning. I'm not zooming into this shot, but it's 60 frames per second, slow motion, right? Slowed down to 40%. So I get that slow motion effect. This is during blue hour. It was raining. It's really intense. And you notice what kind of sound design did I put in there? Rain. Very subtle, right? Keying it in and out with decibel levels. Very subtle to -28, and it's out. Listen to it in the whole film.
I can't even begin to explain how life-changing those few days
You
were.
hear the rain?
At the time, it felt like forever until I'd be able to marry you. And it seems as though I blinked.
Notice when he drops his head. Listen to the beat in the song.
Be able to marry you. And it seems as though I blinked.
Intentional.
And now here we are.
A lot of times when I have vows or a speech and there's that final line I want to say, I cut back to them saying it, and you give context. And then I cut back to that back angle, and I zoomed out. So now I have this feeling of, okay, now we're leaving the ceremony. Where are we going? We're going back to getting ready, okay? So I keep coming back to getting ready. And why am I doing that? Because I'm about to emphasize a very, 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 very important moment that happened just after getting ready.
And now here we are.
Hitting on the beats. Using scratch audio from the camera. Laughing. Mom wiping a tear again. Coming down the stairs with scratch audio. Okay, this part's really cool. So let's just watch this clip. Watch what happens. Okay. I want to see which one's which. Yeah, so I darkened this second one. So if you see this first one, see how dark Emily is up there? But if I clip this one, I duplicated the clip and I made this bottom one really bright so I could see Emily coming down, since the same shot where we pivot to the girls, when we pivoted to the girls, it was way too bright with these settings. So what I did is I stacked 2 on top of each other, and I let the second one be, so it's a blend of the 2 of them. I'm just realizing now that I didn't make it work, or this might be a different version of the edit. So if I actually went 100% here and brought it from 0 right there, that might work. Yeah. Oh, that looked way too awkward. It was me trying to blend the 2. I guess I had the idea and I didn't actually think it would work. That one sort of worked that way. You see what I did there? Basically, I got the bright clip on top and brought it down to 0 to make it disappear, and that brings in this one where they're exposed correctly and not overexposed. Confusing. I even confused myself in that section right there. That was something that I tried to do, stacking, and I guess I gave up on that part. I'd have to look at the final film to see if I actually did do that. But you get the idea here, right? Just a fun little hack. Yeah, that looked pretty convincing. Maybe I would like move this one out a little bit more. All these nuances of keyframes. Man, keyframes can be your friend. And your worst enemy too. Yeah, it dipped a little too dark right there. So maybe like there? No, it's the opposite direction. Yeah. Okay, it was silly to take that much time on that, but this is leading to that moment that I was talking about. That's crazy important. Now look at all these parts. I was using scratch audio from the camera, right? Let's listen to these tracks by themselves.
Oh my god.
That's actually my voice. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god. I got this.
Oh my god.
So you hear all those voices, everybody's voices, collaborating as a chorus all together over the music.
I got this.
They just kind of blend in and out. And then obviously this first look. Which I love. We did not cut this at all. We actually used Mike's fancy Sennheiser lav mics and sent the receiver over to his F6, which is his bulky recorder with 32-bit float. Way overkill. Don't need to do that. You could do the ones that I mentioned as well in the gear section. But we just let this roll, and I love this. I love that Mike swung over and zoomed in and everything. It gives this really real, raw feel. You don't have to do this with your films, but I just love how this turned out. And I just let the music roll and let this play out.
Holy shit. Oh my god. Oh my god. You're fucking beautiful.
Okay, so this music too, I'm dipping it here and there. I'm dipping it right here, see? So when I hear his voice,
you're fucking beautiful.
I brought it down to -6 decibels and then slowly brought it up.
When Ben has his heart set on something.
And then you see it go right back down to 6 once this speech starts, right? So now we're going from these vows, this first look, right into his sister's speech.
You're fucking beautiful.
When Ben has his heart set on something, he's gonna do everything he can to make it happen. With Emily, this included showering her in gifts
more 60
and
frame
asking her on a
B-roll,
vacation within a
Sedona.
month of dating because he
Asking her on vacation a month into dating. Listen, I'm
everything
doing
he
Sedona
can
footage.
to make it happen. With Emily, this included showering her in gifts and asking her on a vacation within a month of dating because he knew what we all know now and today, she was going to be his wife.
Now, I just had her hold that little Sony recorder, right? We're sitting in their living room. We didn't do speeches at their reception. We ran out of time, so I'm like, hey, let's do it at the after party. So we all went to the after party and we did speeches at the after party, which is so cool, just sitting in their living room. But she's just holding it right there. I was like, hey, before you go up there, just hold this like it's a microphone. Just hold it right there. Sounds amazing. Multi-band compressor on broadcast setting, boom.
He can to make it happen. With Emily, this included showering her in gifts and asking her on a vacation within a month of dating because he knew what we all know now and today, she was going to be his wife.
Again, the music.
Ben, you love Emily in the way every girl wants their best friend to be loved.
So cutting snippets of each really impactful part of each speech, stacking them on top of each other here to emphasize this emotion, how much they mean to each other.
Wife?
We knew she was going to be his wife.
Ben, you love
these,
Emily in the way every girl
video-
wants their
Have all these like home video style shots with like the zooms in and zooms out. I normally don't do this, but Mike was shooting that way and I was really leaning into it. He doesn't do it for the sake of this effect. He was just doing it to get the shot, but I love including the zooms.
Ben, you love Emily in the way every girl wants their best friend to be loved. I've seen Emily blossom in your arms and develop into this confidence, this force, this fire, and I know it's because you were there telling her she was capable of it all. The two of you together are unstoppable.
Okay, so all this footage and B-roll of Emily as she's talking about her, right?
Girl wants their best friend to be loved. I've seen Emily blossom in your arms and develop into this.
Again, I'm up here because this is the C-Log 3 stuff in MP4. It's not raw footage. Okay.
In your arms and develop into this confidence, this force, this fire, and I know it's because you were there telling her she was capable of it all. The two of you together are unstoppable.
Music, hits, drum hits. Boom, boom.
Emily,
boom.
You have such a calming presence to be around. You're an old
Brett,
soul,
Brett's,
and you help.
We're in Brett's speech now.
You have such a calming presence
Okay,
to
back
be
to
around.
Emily.
You're an old
Calming
soul,
presence.
and you help Ben slow down so that he can stop and be more present.
It's really helpful to do B-roll like this during speeches. So if you have B-roll from the wedding day, during golden hour, any of that kind of stuff during getting ready, solo portraits. This is why it's so good if someone in the speech talks about one of them in particular, to have one specific shot of them is so helpful in moments like this.
You're an old soul, and you help Ben slow down so that he can stop and be more present. When I see the two of you having a moment in your own little world, it's usually when a song comes on.
When you have a moment in your own little world and showing their goofiness with spraying the champagne, we brought them champagne so they got to do this, and they're doing their little dancing, which Brett talks about
In
here.
your own little world. It's usually when a song comes on, and you're just both vibing, doing your own little thing, you know, dancing together, your little. But you're kissing here and there. You're
Clearly, I'm finding all the footage of them being themselves, doing this kind of dancing, being like that, including the audio of everybody laughing, right? So fun. Showing their personality.
and
really
you're just
showing their
both
personality.
vibing, doing your own little thing, you know, dancing together, your little.
You notice I'm not doing really any sound design anymore, right? I'm really focused in on these speeches. I don't need any more sound design to enhance the film. That's not the focus. We've already set the scene.
But you're kissing here and there. You're giggling, you know. It's just absolutely vibing out without a care about anything else going on around or anybody around. It's just the two of you. You know, Ben always says he.
You notice this is a nested sequence. So the reason I did that is because there's all of these cuts of his speech, cutting out dead space, okay? The reason I did that is because he said he had a lot of ums in there, a lot of ums and stuff. So I'm cutting all that out and I nested it together so it could just be one clip on the bottom here. The way you do that, nest things together, you highlight multiple. You could right click and hit nest, or you can hit the shortcut, which I believe is standard shortcut, just N, and you get nested sequence. You hit OK, and it would nest that sequence in your project. Okay?
Or anybody around. It's just the two of you. You know, Ben always says he never knew me without my wife, Carly. And honestly, I can say the same to him. I feel like when you found Emily, you also found yourself.
So there's a lot of footage of them together, right? Recalling the ceremony, doing rings, out, epic shot in Sedona, epic shot back, recall in Sedona. When you found Emily, you found yourself. What a line. Boom.
You also found yourself.
All right, let's go into the climax then. Boom, boom. So crescendo of song. I'm bringing the song back up in decibels. We're here, -13 all the way up to 0, -1. Just boom, blast it, okay? But since we have multi-band compressor, which I believe we do, yep, on broadcast setting on the song. Oh, it's just on default there. Because this will still limit it, even if it's not on broadcast setting. It won't let it max out. You want to make sure those levels... I want to make sure those levels all the way up there aren't peaking up over 0 in the hot red. Okay, so now just notice, I'm just going to let this rip, okay? I don't need to go individually into each clip of this, but you can see how much it's segmented. And through this section, I want you to notice, what am I doing? What shots am I choosing to put into these parts of this climactic part of the song? And how is it matching up to the beats in the music? Okay, so we have this crescendo all the way into this climactic ending. Go. Slow it down a little bit with the emotions. Still hitting again. Important moments. Hit. Double exposure. Let's stop on that double exposure so you can see what I did here. 50% opacity on each of them. Opacity, half. And then 100 on the bottom. So that, okay, we have Ben at the bottom here. It's really saturated because when you layer the other one over, it doesn't look as saturated. But this top one's at 50% so that we can see both of them in this shot. Love doing little creative things like that. Okay, lots of hits. Hit. All Sedona. Moon. Double exposure again. Hit. Pacing, faster, run. Okay, so now I just took all of those clips. Not all of them, but a lot of the clips that I just used prior, and I rewound it back to go crazy fast into this last boom hit in the song. And then we have that spin again in Blue Hour, silhouetted, more silhouetted Blue Hour, romantic, boom, 60 frames, slow-mo, all the same kind of vibe. Okay, again, waterfall sound. It's growing. And watch what I'm doing with the clip. Look, zooming in that clip again. Boom. And this one, I'm actually changing the motion too, the position of the shot. So I'm pushing it over and over, okay? So it's this crescendo back to roundabout full circle, back to his voice over the intercom.
Although a few years have gone by now, let me tell you, it still feels so damn good to be home.
Although a few years have gone by now, it still feels so damn good to be home. I'm recalling all the same footage that I put in the beginning, full circle in the story, right? It's been a few years now, but it feels so good to still be at home.
Although a few years have gone by now, let me tell you, it still feels so damn good to be home. Emily Hope Rose Zinchuk, I love you with all that I am. You are my moon and my stars.
You're my moon and my stars. Look at that shot. Moon and stars on the dress. Moon and stars are really important to her, that she had that dress custom made. She had those on her ceiling as a kid. So important. You hear that line, you hear that story, it's got to be included in the film.
Damn good to be home. Emily Hope Rose Zinchuk, I love you with all that I am. You are my moon and my stars. You have my whole heart forever and always.
I was waiting for the moment to
There we go. All reaction. Wipe the tear with it. And this is just this last shot. Just hold it there. Push in.
And I wouldn't miss it for the
Let it go. Look at those emotions. Black. Oh! Sorry, I don't mean to toot my own horn. But it's just, oh, I love it so much. You can see down here that I'm alternating again between the different versions of the song. Okay, so we have the lyrical version there, and then we have an instrumental back here.
In the way every girl wants their
going,
best friend to be loved.
Right? So there's no lyrics here. Okay, and then I cut back to the non-instrumental here and let it rip all the way through lyrics. So when there's no speeches, I'll leave the lyrics in there, and these lyrics are so good. Think about it in contrast to the vowels and the things that they say. Just listen to this.
You have my whole heart, forever and always.
Forever and always.
I was waiting for the moment to arrive.
How perfect is that?
Waiting for the moment to arrive. I was
waiting for you.
And I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Constant power, faded out. Right? Okay. Ben is also into music. He noticed that I chose the instrumental and the lyrical versions and smashed all of those all together because he was listening to this song on Spotify. He found it. And he's like, that part of the film's different. Like, what? Why is there? I didn't hear those lyrics in the film. And then I told him, he's like, you sneaky snake. It's so cool to be able to mix and match all of those. And Music Bed gives you the option to do that. And it's just so impressive. And I love chapters. I use them for the promo on this course, on the promo video. It's just like the most emotional, amazing music. We want to interview them on Rally Caps. We'll probably get them on there. Right, Steven?
Absolutely.
Yes. Steven's been in the room this whole time. I don't know if you heard him earlier. Okay, so we have that. Very quickly now, I just want to run you through the export, and then we're going to be done, and then you can go to sleep, because probably the length of this was the whole day that you watched it, and now you're tired and want to go to bed. Okay, last thing, we just need to export this out and upload it to Vimeo, okay? So a shortcut, you could go, right here I have in and out points. So up here, you can just click I for in, all right? That'll select your in at the beginning of the film at 0, and you can go all the way to the end and select your out point by O. Or you can right click and hit mark out, okay? So find that spot and drag it to the end of your film, all right? Zoom all the way in, make sure, yep, it's all the way at the end of my film. So it's just gonna export this gray highlighted area, okay? I can go to File, Export, Media, or I could do that little shortcut that it shows there, Command M, or Control M if you're on PC. All right, Command M. All right, so we're gonna get this export screen after the spinning pinwheel of death, okay? This is where I'm gonna make sure the format is H.264. I could put a preset here if I want to. I like to manually dial mine in every time because I'm always doing something different, but your call, you can make presets with all the settings I'm about to show you, so you could just make it quick. I should probably do that. It would save me time in my life. Okay. So I have an edits folder on my desktop under the work folder, work, edits, and I would definitely just title this Ben and Emily. My keyboard, Ben and Emily, save, okay? I do want this at this resolution, right? 3840 by 1628. That gives me that equivalent of 1920 by 814, which is that 2.39 to 1 aspect ratio, the really wide stuff. Something I didn't mention, when you're in this wide aspect ratio, all of your clips can be moved up and down in this position with a lot of room until you start hitting black on either end, right? So you have flexibility to move this stuff up and down in this format. It gives you that flexibility to kind of figure out the landscape of your image versus just being stuck with that 16 by 9 or 17 by 9 aspect ratio. So let's go back to the export, right? We wanted to call it Ben and Emily, okay? So we had to make sure that the video is 3840 by 1628 or whatever resolution you choose. I like to do the target bitrate at 30, okay? That's recommended for Vimeo and for YouTube, and you can look up all of those bitrate options. When you change this, it's going to change the size of the file. So if I had it down at 10, you can see the file is significantly smaller. This is just giving more quality to the image, to the final edit. This is very important. In Premiere, when you export, your colors come out less saturated than what you saw in the edit. To change that, I highly recommend searching up saturate colors in Premiere. You'll find a video by my friend Matt Johnson with the big beard. He will walk you through getting this lookup table that you save in a folder like I have. And in this panel, in the effects panel, you click Lumetri Look or LUT, and you click into this. You go to that LUT folder after you save this from Matt Johnson, and you retitle it. I retitled it Resaturate, and I apply the Resaturate to the export. It is so dumb. It's one of the things I hate about Premiere and doesn't happen in other softwares like Final Cut and DaVinci, which is one of the many reasons I might want to move to another one. But you have to do that every time you export to get the same colors, okay? Everything else I just leave standard in here, okay? VBR 1 pass, render at maximum depth, and that's it. Make sure your audio is good to go. Okay, stereo channel, audio quality is high, 32 or 320 on bitrate. Okay, good to go. You can hit export and it will export right out of Premiere into a file on desktop, wherever you put that folder or whatever. Or you can hit Q and it will bring it to Adobe Media Encoder. This is helpful because if you're exporting multiple things, you can put it into Media Encoder. Just like this course, when we're having to export all these modules, we can stack up all of these exports in Media Encoder stacked up on each other. And all you have to do is you have like 5 different edits from different sequences in Premiere. You just hit that play button and then all of them will start exporting. You can just leave your computer. So you can see that these are old exports that I had. And then once yours is ready, you click on it. So this is the one I want. And then I would just hit the play button and then it would start exporting. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now. That's one way, or you can just hit the export button in Premiere. Okay, last part, super easy. I just do Vimeo for delivery and upload. If I did new video, choose files, and then I would choose, Ben and Emily's, whatever it was. I'll just choose this one, my 100,000 subscriber video. No big deal. That was so arrogant. It would start uploading as such, but I don't want this to ruin my storage on my Vimeo. So I'm going to exit out of that. You can make it public or you can make it private. Pretty straightforward on this, okay? So we are not going to actually upload that. And then when I deliver that, no, I don't want this on my Vimeo. People are going to think I'm an absolute narcissist. Okay. Delete. Whatever. Okay. That's enough of that. All right. So it's up to you on if you're doing the raw footage. If you want to send that off, this is so distracting. It's my 100,000 sub video. If you want to send your raw footage in the mail, that's what I like to do. I like to put it on a flash drive so I compress it in post. When I do this export, I just lower the bit rate. So instead of 30, I might bring it down to like 5 and shrink the file like crazy to make sure that all the hours of footage that I have go on a 32 gigabyte thumb drive. I put that in an envelope, I put a letter in there, and I send it off in the mail. Or you can do it on something like Google Drive or Dropbox, or you can compress the file and deliver it over Vimeo as well. If you do raw footage, totally your call. This is why I really think a brand like PickTime would do... they're doing a great disservice by not allowing filmmakers like us to deliver through their platform, because I just don't feel like there's really anything out there. There are some, I just don't like them. So I just do Vimeo. I send an email. I'm like, hey, the film's ready. So excited to share it with you. Here's the link. This is how you download. So I share with them how to download. It's super simple. It's just that little down arrow right under the video. Make sure you click the highest resolution, the one that is the 4K option, and save it in multiple places, 3 spots, including your computer and a hard drive and online, so that ensures that it'll be there. I will always have a Vimeo account indefinitely until I don't anymore. So it will always live on this link until I don't have an account with this service anymore. So just make sure you download it in those places to ensure its safety. Thank you so much for watching your film. I love you. I say all those nice things. And that is a wrap on the video editing. Thank you for sitting through that. So much information. Again, pause, go somewhere else, watch something else, listen to some music, take a bath, go on a run. eat some chocolate, do anything to not have to listen to my voice again, and then revisit this again in a couple days, okay? Love you guys. See you in Module 5.